Competitive landscape, strategic positioning in a global naval arms race. Date, January 27, 2025. Abstract. The strategic positioning of the United States, China, and Russia within the global naval arms race is crucial as we approach 2030. This report examines the evolving dynamics between these powers, focusing on military modernization, economic interdependence, and potential flashpoints that may influence global order. Key areas of contention include the Taiwan issue, nuclear capabilities, and the implications of U.S. Russia relations. This analysis emphasizes the need for a balanced approach that incorporates both deterrence and cooperation as the world navigates through this complex geopolitical landscape. Introduction. As we approach the year 2030, the competitive landscape of naval power among the United States, China, and Russia has intensified. Each nation is engaged in a military modernization campaign, significantly enhancing its naval capabilities. The overarching theme of this competition is the search for dominance in a multipolar world, where military strength, economic ties, and technological advancements are paramount. Key themes. 1. Bipolar competition. The U.S.-China rivalry is increasingly likened to a new Cold War marked by military and technological competition. China aims to expand its naval fleet, potentially outnumbering the U.S. Navy by 2030, while the U.S. seeks to maintain its maritime superiority through modernization and strategic alliances. 2. Economic interdependence. Despite rising tensions, the economic ties between the U.S. and China remain significant. The two nations are the world's largest economies, and their interdependence complicates the rivalry as both seek to leverage economic influence while addressing national security concerns. 3. Taiwan as a flashpoint. Taiwan remains a critical point of contention. The U.S. adheres to a policy of strategic ambiguity, while China has not ruled out military action to assert its claims over the island. The potential for conflict over Taiwan poses substantial risks of escalation, including nuclear dynamics. For U.S. Russia relations, Russia's partnership with China adds complexity to the naval arms race. The U.S. perceives threats from both nations, and their cooperation challenges the strategic calculus for American policymakers regarding military responses and alliances in the region. 5. Nuclear dynamics. Both the U.S. and China are modernizing their nuclear arsenals. China's rapid expansion poses challenges to U.S. deterrence strategies, raising concerns about the likelihood of nuclear weapons use in conflict scenarios. Comparative analysis of strategic positioning. United States. Military modernization. The U.S. has committed to enhancing its naval capabilities, focusing on advanced technologies such as unmanned systems, cyber warfare, and missile defense. The U.S. Navy's fleet is projected to remain around 290 ships, with investments in next-gen vessels and systems designed for deterrence and combat readiness. Economic policies. The U.S. has implemented tariffs and export controls aimed at reducing dependence on Chinese technology. This economic decoupling reflects broader security concerns but risks escalating tensions further. Diplomatic engagements. The Biden administration has sought to strengthen alliances in the Indo-Pacific, enhancing military cooperation with allies like Japan and Australia in response to China's assertive actions. China. Naval expansion. China is on track to expand its navy from 370 to an estimated 435 ships by 2030. This growth is part of a broader strategy to assert maritime claims and project power in the Asia-Pacific region. Economic strategy. China remains deeply integrated into the global economy with efforts to internationalize the renminbi. However, its economic policies, particularly regarding state subsidies and intellectual property, have drawn criticism from the U.S. and its allies. Regional influence. China's Belt and Road Initiative and Global Development Initiative aim to enhance its influence in the Global South, countering U.S. narratives and establishing partnerships that may challenge U.S. hegemony. Russia. Strategic partnerships. Russia's cooperation with China, particularly in military exercises and arms sales, complicates the U.S. position.
The Kremlin views its relationship with Beijing as a counterbalance to U.S. influence.
Military buildup. Russia continues to modernize its naval forces, albeit at a slower pace, focusing on maintaining capabilities in the Arctic and the Black Sea to secure its national interests.
Flashpoints and future projections. Taiwan. The Taiwan Straits remain the most pressing flashpoint between the U.S. and China. The potential for military confrontation over Taiwan could escalate into a broader conflict, drawing in the U.S. and its allies. The U.S. must navigate its commitment to Taiwan's defense while managing its relationship with Beijing to prevent miscalculations that could lead to war. Nuclear escalation risks. The modernization of both U.S. and Chinese nuclear arsenals raises concerns about the potential for nuclear conflict. Analysts warn that in a conventional conflict, the losing side may resort to low-yield nuclear weapons to compel de-escalation. This scenario underscores the urgency for both nations to engage in meaningful dialogue to establish nuclear risk reduction measures. Regional dynamics. The military balance in East Asia is likely to evolve as both sides invest in capabilities. The U.S. strategy of denial, focusing on deterring aggression while maintaining a resilient forward posture, could contribute to stability in the region. However, China's perception of U.S. intentions will continue to shape its military responses and strategic calculus. Conclusion. The competitive landscape of the U.S.-China relationship within the context of a global naval arms race is fraught with challenges. While both nations pursue modernization and seek to assert their influence, offers various counterintuitive insights that challenge conventional wisdom. Here are some of those insights. 1. China's naval expansion versus U.S. deterrence. It is often assumed that the sheer numerical superiority of China's naval fleet will directly translate into dominance over U.S. naval forces by 2030. However, while China's fleet might outnumber the U.S. Navy, analysts argue that the qualitative aspects of military capability, such as advanced technology and operational readiness, remain in favor of the U.S. Navy. This suggests that a larger fleet does not guarantee effective military power, challenging the expectation that quantity alone will ensure dominance. 2. Economic interdependence as a stabilizing factor. Many predict that the rising tensions between the U.S. and China will lead to outright military conflict. Counterintuitively, however, the deep economic interdependence between these two superpowers may act as a stabilizing factor, dissuading both sides from engaging in conflict due to the catastrophic consequences that could ensue. This perspective contradicts the usual narrative that economic ties inevitably lead to conflict, proposing instead that such ties create disincentives for warfare. 3. Taiwan as a flashpoint versus nuclear deterrence. The assumption that a conflict over Taiwan would automatically escalate to a larger military confrontation overlooks the complex dynamics of nuclear deterrence. While Taiwan is often seen as the most likely trigger for U.S.-China military engagement, analysts suggest that both nations are acutely aware of the catastrophic consequences of nuclear escalation. This awareness could paradoxically lead to more cautious approaches, as neither side wants to risk a nuclear exchange complicating the narrative of inevitable conflict. 4. Russia's role in the arms race. Conventional wisdom often views Russia as a primary adversary to the U.S., with its military posture serving as a counterbalance to U.S. power. However, the complex relationship between Russia and China suggests that their cooperation could actually complicate U.S. strategic calculations. The evolving partnership may not merely be adversarial but could also create unexpected alliances that challenge traditional geopolitical boundaries, indicating that the competitive landscape is not as straightforward as a simple U.S. Russia or U.S. China dichotomy. 5. Potential for cooperation despite rivalry. While many analyses focus on the adversarial nature of U.S.-China relations, there is a counterintuitive argument for the potential benefits of cooperation on global issues such as climate change and public health. This perspective posits that despite their rivalry, the interdependencies and shared interests in addressing global challenges could foster a more collaborative approach, which counters the prevailing narrative of unyielding competition.
6. The importance of communication channels. The view that military communication channels are primarily for crisis management may understate their broader significance.
Effective communication can also serve as a tool for building trust and avoiding miscalculations.
This suggests that fostering dialogue might be more critical in preventing conflict than previously assumed, highlighting the need for a nuanced understanding of how states interact during periods of heightened tension. 7. U.S. strategies in domestic politics. The relationship between domestic politics in the U.S. and its foreign policy towards China often leads to the belief that an aggressive stance is always necessary.
However, the political landscape is more nuanced,
and there is potential for a bipartisan consensus around managing competition instead of outright confrontation.
This indicates that there are viable paths for engagement that do not conform to the standard narrative of relentless hostility.
8. China's nuclear strategy. The perception that China's rapid nuclear expansion poses a direct and immediate threat to U.S. security may ignore the possibility that this buildup could lead to more robust arms control discussions. As both nations enhance their nuclear arsenals, there could be a mutual recognition of the need for dialogue to mitigate risks, which counters the expectation that military buildups always lead to increased hostilities.
9. Regional allies' influence. The assumption that U.S. allies will uniformly align with Washington against China overlooks the complexity of regional politics. Many allies are wary of being drawn into a direct conflict and may seek a more balanced approach, indicating that the dynamics of regional alliances could lead to unexpected outcomes that challenge the binary view of U.S.-China relations. 10. Long-term economic forecasts. The prevailing narrative that China will surpass the U.S. economically by a specific timeline may not account for the inherent unpredictability of economic trajectories. Factors such as demographic challenges, economic reforms, and global market reactions could alter these projections, suggesting that the anticipated economic landscape may not unfold as expected. Overall, these counterintuitive insights reveal a competitive landscape that is more complex and multifaceted than often portrayed, highlighting the need for nuanced strategies that consider not only military capabilities but also economic interdependencies, regional dynamics, and the potential for cooperation amidst rivalry.
The report, titled Strategic Positioning in a Global Naval Arms Race, Forecasting China's Dominance by 2030 Amidst U.S. and Russian Developments, delves into the evolving dynamics of the global naval arms race, focusing on the strategic competition between the United States, China, and Russia. The analysis provides a comprehensive overview of several critical themes that are often overshadowed in discussions about international military balance. Below, I highlight key content that is likely to be overlooked and explain its significance.
1. Bipolar competition and its nuances.
The notion of a bipolar competition between the U.S. and China is widely recognized, yet the nuances of this rivalry are often simplified. The report emphasizes that while the U.S. and China are engaged in a military buildup,
they are also bound by economic interdependence that complicates their relations. This duality suggests that outright conflict may not be imminent or advantageous for either side.
The significance here lies in understanding that economic ties can serve as a stabilizing force even amidst growing military tensions. This perspective challenges the deterministic view of an inevitable clash and suggests a more complex interplay of cooperation and competition.
2. Taiwan as a flashpoint.
While the Taiwan issue is frequently cited as a potential trigger for conflict, the report highlights the precarious balance maintained by U.S. strategic ambiguity and China's assertiveness. The implications of this flashpoint extend beyond military confrontation. They encompass global economic stability, regional security alliances, and the potential for nuclear escalation.
The importance of this detail cannot be overstated,
as it underscores the need for nuanced diplomatic engagement and crisis management strategies to prevent miscalculations that could spiral into broader conflicts.
3. The role of regional allies.
The report points to the increasingly coordinated military efforts of U.S. allies in the region, such as Japan, Australia, and South Korea. The enhanced military capabilities and shared technologies among these allies create a more formidable front against potential Chinese aggression. However, this aspect is often underappreciated outside of defense circles. The significance lies in recognizing that the U.S. military posture is not solely reliant on its own capabilities but is augmented by regional allies. This collective strength could effectively deter aggressive actions by China, thereby promoting stability in East Asia. 4. Nuclear dynamics and strategic stability. The modernization of nuclear arsenals by both the U.S. and China presents a critical yet often overlooked dimension of the arms race. As China expands its nuclear capabilities, the report argues that this could lead to increased tensions and the potential for nuclear conflict, particularly in scenarios involving Taiwan. This dynamic raises the stakes for both nations and highlights the urgent need for dialogue on nuclear arms control and crisis management. The implications are profound. Without proactive measures to manage these risks, the chances of nuclear miscalculations could escalate, endangering not just the U.S. and China but global security. 5. Economic interdependence versus decoupling. The report presents divergent views on the future of U.S.-China economic relations, with some advocating for decoupling in critical sectors and others emphasizing the resilience of interdependence. This debate is significant as it reveals differing strategic visions for the future, where economic ties may either serve as a bridge for cooperation or a source of tension. The report suggests that while some level of technological and economic decoupling is likely, it is essential to recognize the limits of this process. Understanding the interplay between cooperation and competition in the economic domain can inform policymakers on how to navigate this complex landscape effectively. 6. The potential for managed competition. The report outlines potential scenarios for the U.S.-China relationship moving forward, emphasizing the possibility of managed competition. This concept suggests a framework where both powers can coexist while managing their differences through effective communication and negotiation mechanisms. The significance here is that it offers a pathway to avoid the binary outcomes of either cooperation or conflict. By promoting a structured approach to competition, it is possible to mitigate risks and foster a more stable international order. 7. The importance of narrative framing. The framing of U.S.-China relations in domestic and international discourse plays a crucial role in shaping perceptions and policy decisions. The report highlights how narratives, whether portraying China as a competitor or a threat, can influence political discourse and public opinion. This aspect is significant because it underscores the power of rhetoric in foreign policy. Narratives can either foster a more cooperative environment or escalate tensions. Policymakers must therefore be mindful of the language they use and the narratives they construct, as these can have real-world consequences on bilateral relations. 8. Third-party influences on U.S.-China relations. The report touches on the role of third-party countries in influencing the dynamics between the U.S. and China. Nations in the Global South, for instance, may align with one power over the other based on their economic interests and historical ties. The significance of this point lies in understanding that U.S.-China relations do not occur in a vacuum. The stances of other countries can significantly impact the strategic calculations of both superpowers. Recognizing this interconnectedness can lead to more effective diplomatic strategies that consider the broader geopolitical landscape. Conclusion. In summary, the competitive landscape of U.S.-China relations amidst a global naval arms race is marked by complexities that extend beyond traditional military considerations. The interplay of economic interdependence, regional dynamics, nuclear risks, and narrative framing all play critical roles in shaping the trajectory of this relationship. By understanding and addressing these nuanced factors, policymakers can work toward a more stable and constructive U.S.-China relationship, thereby contributing to global peace and security. 1. Bipolar competition and military modernization. the competitive rivalry between the U.S. and China is increasingly characterized as a new Cold War, with both powers investing heavily in military modernization, particularly naval capabilities. Analysts predict that by 2030 China may expand its naval fleet sufficiently to potentially outnumber the U.S. Navy. This shift in military balance could have significant implications for global security dynamics, especially in the Indo-Pacific region where both nations vie for dominance and influence.
2. The Taiwan flashpoint. Taiwan remains a critical flashpoint in U.S.-China relations with potential for military confrontation.
The U.S. policy of strategic ambiguity contrasts with China's assertive stance regarding Taiwan, where military action has not been ruled out.
The potential for a conflict over Taiwan raises concerns about nuclear escalation,
making the management of this issue vital for maintaining regional stability and preventing a catastrophic war. 3. Economic interdependence and decoupling trends. Despite the geopolitical tensions, the economic interdependence between the U.S. and China is notable, with both countries intertwined through extensive trade and investment.
However, trends toward economic decoupling in sensitive sectors pose challenges as both nations grapple with balancing national security concerns with economic cooperation. The complexities of this interdependence could influence bilateral relations and the global economic landscape. For nuclear dynamics and arms control, the modernization of nuclear arsenals by both China and the U.S. is transforming the strategic landscape. China's rapid nuclear expansion introduces challenges for U.S. deterrence strategies and increases the risk of nuclear conflict, particularly in the context of a potential military engagement over Taiwan. There is a pressing need for effective arms control discussions and crisis management mechanisms to stabilize this precarious relationship and mitigate the risks of nuclear escalation. Here are 3 famous historical cases that are comparable to the contemporary competitive landscape involving the U.S. China-Russia naval arms race and strategic positioning. 1. The Anglo-German naval arms race 1898 to 1914. This was a significant period leading up to World War I, characterized by intense competition between the United Kingdom and Germany over naval supremacy. The British Royal Navy, traditionally the world's most powerful naval force, was increasingly challenged by Germany's rapidly expanding fleet. The race included the construction of dreadnought battleships, which revolutionized naval warfare. The arms race heightened tensions and contributed to the broader geopolitical rivalries that eventually led to the outbreak of World War I. This historical example reflects the dynamics of military competition, national prestige, and the potential for conflict that paralleled the current U.S.-China naval arms race. 2. The Cold War arms race 1947 to 1991. The Cold War era saw the United States and the Soviet Union engage in a protracted competition for global influence, which included a significant focus on nuclear and conventional military capabilities. This competition was marked by the development of extensive arsenals, including intercontinental ballistic missiles (ICBMs) and nuclear submarines, as both superpowers sought to deter each other while projecting power globally. The Cuban Missile Crisis exemplified how miscalculations could escalate into nuclear confrontation, echoing concerns about the potential for conflict in the current U.S.-China rivalry. The Cold War arms race underscores the implications of military competition, technological advancements, and ideological conflicts, much like today's strategic military posturing among the U.S., China, and Russia. 3. The Sino-Soviet split 1960s. While not a traditional arms race, the Sino-Soviet split illustrates the complexities of alliances and rivalries in the context of military and ideological competition. Initially allies against Western powers, China and the Soviet Union experienced a breakdown in their relationship over ideological differences and territorial disputes. This split led to increased military tensions, with both nations enhancing their military capabilities and forming new alliances. The U.S. strategically leveraged the split to its advantage, realigning its policies and engaging with China in the 1970s. This historical context is relevant when considering the current strategic calculations of the U.S., China, and Russia. as shifting alliances and tensions can dramatically influence global security architectures. These historical cases provide important insights into the dynamics of military competition, the consequences of strategic positioning, and the potential for conflict in the context of great power rivalries. Future outlook: predictions for the global naval arms race and China's dominance by 2030. The strategic landscape surrounding the naval arms race among the United States, China, and Russia is poised for significant transformation by 2030. This period will be marked by heightened competition, evolving military capabilities, and complex geopolitical dynamics. Below are key predictions regarding the competitive landscape, focusing on China's potential dominance amidst developments in U.S. and Russian naval capabilities. 1. China's naval expansion and capabilities. By 2030, it is anticipated that the People's Liberation Army Navy plan will have undergone substantial modernization, likely achieving numerical and qualitative parity with the U.S. Navy in certain areas. Analysts estimate that China could have a fleet of over 500 ships, significantly bolstered by advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, unmanned systems, and hypersonic missiles. This growth will not only enhance China's ability to project power regionally but could also extend its influence globally, challenging U.S. naval operations in critical choke points like the South China Sea. 2. U.S. strategic response. In response to China's growing naval capabilities, the United States will likely intensify its military presence in the Indo-Pacific region. While the U.S. Navy may maintain its qualitative edge in certain advanced technologies such as aircraft carriers and submarines, it will face challenges in maintaining its fleet size. Innovations like distributed maritime operations (DMO) may be implemented to enhance operational flexibility. However, budget constraints and political divisions may hinder the U.S. from achieving the necessary naval expansion to match China's growth effectively. 3. Russia's role in the arms race. Russia's naval modernization efforts, while significant, will likely remain constrained by economic challenges and geopolitical priorities. Russia may focus on enhancing its capabilities in the Arctic and the Black Sea, continuing its strategic partnership with China. This partnership could see joint naval exercises and technology sharing initiatives, further complicating U.S. strategic calculations. 4. Regional dynamics and alliances. Regional dynamics will play a crucial role in shaping the naval arms race. Countries in Southeast Asia such as India, Japan, and Australia are expected to enhance their naval capabilities in response to China's assertiveness. The Quad US, India, Japan, and Australia will likely deepen its collaborative efforts for maritime security, including joint exercises and intelligence sharing, as a counterbalance to Chinese expansionism. 5. Technological innovations in warfare. The naval arms race will increasingly be characterized by technological innovations. Unmanned systems, cybersecurity measures, and advanced missile technologies will reshape naval strategies. The integration of artificial intelligence in command and control systems could enhance naval operations efficiency, allowing for rapid response to threats. Moreover, cyber warfare capabilities will likely become a critical component of naval strategies, influencing how nations protect their maritime interests. 6. Nuclear dynamics and deterrence. The modernization of nuclear arsenals by both China and the U.S. will significantly impact the naval arms race. China's expansion of its nuclear capabilities, including submarine-launched ballistic missiles, will challenge U.S. deterrence strategies. As both nations enhance their nuclear arsenals, the risk of miscalculation during a maritime confrontation could rise, necessitating robust communication channels to prevent escalation. 7. Economic factors and resource allocation. Economic interdependence between the U.S. and China will continue to influence military expenditures. Despite competitive tensions, both countries may recognize the necessity of maintaining stable economic relations, as military escalation could have severe economic repercussions. This interdependence may lead to periods of détente, allowing for cooperative frameworks on maritime security while still enabling military modernization.
8. Potential flashpoints and conflict scenarios. The Taiwan Strait remains a critical flashpoint in the U.S.-China relationship, with the potential for military confrontation increasing as both sides enhance their military capabilities. A miscalculation by either side regarding military posturing could lead to conflict. U.S. strategic ambiguity concerning Taiwan will continue to be tested, with China viewing any perceived support for Taiwanese independence as a provocation. 9. Global perceptions and soft power. China's military expansion will be met with scrutiny and concern from the international community. As China seeks to position itself as a global leader, its military actions will be closely monitored, impacting its soft power in diplomatic relations. The U.S. will likely leverage its alliances to counterbalance China's influence, emphasizing the importance of a rules-based international order. 10. Long-term predictions beyond 2030. By 2030, the naval arms race will have set the stage for a new global security architecture. If both the U.S. and China can manage their rivalry effectively, there is potential for a stable military balance that prevents conflict. This could involve arms control agreements, crisis management mechanisms, and cooperative engagement on global challenges such as piracy and climate change. However, if tensions escalate unchecked, the world could witness a return to Cold War-like conditions with increased military confrontations and regional instability. Conclusion. The future of the global naval arms race is uncertain, shaped by technological advancements, strategic decisions, and geopolitical dynamics. China's potential dominance by 2030 will depend not only on its military capabilities but also on its ability to navigate complex international relations while managing its domestic challenges. The United States' response, regional dynamics, and the role of allies will be pivotal in determining the trajectory of this evolving landscape. The outcomes will have significant implications for global security, economic stability, and the international order as a whole.